European firms are looking to expand trade and investment with Southeast Asia, but have increasing concerns over non-tariff barriers and the pace of economic integration. According to the latest EU-ASEAN Business Sentiment Survey, which tallies European businesses, 88% of those surveyed expect to increase their businesses in ASEAN over the next 5 years. Now, that is up from 75% in the year 2018. 73% also expect profits in ASEAN to rise this year. And over half of the respondents see ASEAN as the region with the best economic opportunity. But it is not all good news. Only 3% believe that ASEAN economic integration is progressing fast enough. And almost 60% said that non-tariff barriers haven't changed much. That's despite many ASEAN-level commitments to remove these restrictions. Now, for more on these report findings, Chris Humphrey, Executive Director of EU-ASEAN Business Council, joins us in the studio. Good evening, Chris. Good to see you here.
Good evening. Thank you.
All right, so, Chris, why are European investors so bullish about ASEAN? And that's despite all of the volatility and the uncertainty that we've seen geopolitically around the world.
Well, I think ASEAN itself has a great deal of promise. It's got huge GDP growth, third largest labour force, area of huge opportunity. And it's a region which does buy in still to the global rules-based trading order. And all these things are great positives for the region. And that's why European businesses like the region so much.
Chris, is there a specific sectors within ASEAN that perhaps European companies are optimistic about?
Well, when we're doing the survey, the percentages for services and for manufacturing were still very, very high, about increasing. So the number you saw there for 88% increase, I think services were about 92%. Manufacturing was about 85%. So they're both very, very strong sectors. But it does depend on which country in the region you're looking at.
And they believe that those sectors still will have bite over the years to come. But why do they perceive this sort of strength and sort of lack of volatility for those sectors?
Well, I think because you look at the region as a whole, it's growing enormously, huge rates of urbanization, increasing in the middle income sectors as well. And that means markets are driving. So companies are coming here not to export back to Europe as they did in the past. They're coming here to service the local market as well.
So there was a number there as well, not a very good number, about the pace of ASEAN integration.
Yes.
Not so much optimism about that. Why? I mean, has that affected investor confidence? And what's behind that sort of negativity?
Well, for the first time this year, we're seeing that the reasons for wanting to invest more is no longer economic integration in ASEAN. It's more domestic policy issues in each individual ASEAN country. And so the 3% number which you had on your screen just now, that's actually a big drop over previous years.
Right.
I think businesses from Europe are now losing faith with the AEC process as a whole. And they're seeing an increase in non-tariff barriers in the region, not a decrease as been promised. And harmonisation across the region just isn't happening.
So why the concern over those non-tariff barriers?
Well, because non-tariff barriers are harder to navigate. With tariffs, you know what you're going to do. You're going to pay the money and that's it. With non-tariff barriers, you don't really understand them. The rules come along. They're often come along overnight. And we've seen an increase of 50% in non-tariff measures in ASEAN over the last 4 years. There's now 9,500 of them compared to 540 in Europe.
Right. And have we seen specific examples of that?
Well, they come in very many different forms. Some of them come in the forms of restricting exports. Some come in the form of price controls. Many of them are around perhaps labelling issues and restrictions on local content as well.
What do you foresee, Chris, in regards the main challenges that ASEAN businesses might come against when it comes to the European nations sort of coming over and investing here?
Well, European businesses here have got a long, long history, and we come to invest, and we invest in local communities, and we invest in supply chains. So you would also see elsewhere in the survey a big number of European firms using regional supply chains. So we're coming here as partners for the region. So local businesses have nothing to fear, actually, from European companies coming in.
Earlier on, Chris, you talked about the importance of free trade agreements, that we see that here in Asia. Do you think that we can see more free trade agreements between Southeast Asian nations or ASEAN nations and the European Communion?
Well, certainly we at the Business Council hope that will happen. Our members hope it will happen. It's borne out in the survey as well of European businesses. We think the pace of discussions between Europe and Southeast Asia is far too slow. We've only got Singapore and Vietnam now. We need more bilateral deals and ideally a region-to-region deal.
All right, so let's switch gears a bit. Let's talk about what's going on with the United Kingdom,
Yeah.
and of course the fallout perhaps should there be a hard Brexit. The ASEAN region is one of the fastest growing in the world. It'll be the world's fourth largest economy in not too many years from now. But how could businesses perhaps mitigate risk from a hard Brexit, should there be one?
Well, I think they need to look at the longer term issues around Brexit. In the short term, of course, the pound will probably fall in value. That may make the UK more attractive as an investment location for them. And they may want to look instead of perhaps investing into the rest of Europe rather than the UK. If they're trying to trade with the whole of the European Union, that might make more sense for them. But they should be taking a long-term view of all of this.
And perhaps even looking into the growth of e-commerce in this region as well, and the potential that that has.
Well, exactly. I think the digital economy in Southeast Asia has huge potential, as long as the region can get things right, and that means they need to work on things like data localization and data flows and the infrastructure to support it as well.
Yeah, we all want that smart nation status.
Absolutely.
Chris, thank you very much for coming into the studios to share your thoughts with us on that. That was Chris Humphrey. He is Executive Director of EU-ASEAN Business Council.